There's a fight going on in the WWE at the moment, and it's not a good one. It's the fight to be not the least important show on the calendar. It's one that we know WrestleMania, Royal Rumble are never going to be competing for, but historically Saudi Arabia shows were the glorified house shows. Nowadays we have Saturday Night Main Event, but it's trying to get out of it, and you know how? Logan Paul, CM Punk, John Cena. There's big names on this one. Still no Wyatt Sicks, but there are big names on this one. So let's go through all the matches WWE could put on this year's, or in fact this month's, Saturday Night Main Event. Because to be fair, when there are apparently rumours of Evolution on July 12th, they've dropped Saturday Night Main Event XL there as well. So we're not getting rid of this one anytime soon. Let's start with the World Heavyweight Championship, already announced as being on the card. It will be the Maverick Logan Paul, I don't think he even uses that name anymore, that's how much attention I pay, versus Jay Uso. The nickname for Jay Uso, of course, is Main Event, but I would also take Chronic Yeeta, I'd go for that. Do Logan Paul and Jay Uso have beef? Kind of, but only in that way that you kind of forget that Logan Paul exists sometimes, and those are some glorious moments. Jay Uso is very involved in the CM Punk, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins storyline instead, and it kind of is constantly forgotten about Logan Paul because there's just been no time to build it. Between WrestleMania Backlash and Saturday Night Main Event, it's just constant. It's constantly happening. And we had to wait so many extra weeks for WrestleMania that now they're trying to give us long-term storylines with no time to do it. So the Logan Paul thing, he just attacked Jay one day, he just attacked Jay another day, and now they're going to wrestle. That said, we didn't see the World Heavyweight Championship at the actual Backlash show, and if not for the Seth Rollins element of it all, Jey Uso would be kind of relegated to the background. At a time when John Cena's barely making appearances, you'd expect Jey Uso to be the most recognizable name on the card, the man who holds a championship, the man basically competing to be the last true champion, and yet he's kind of just buggering off elsewhere. Logan Paul brings a lot of spotlight, as we know, and a show like Saturday Night Main Event featuring a World Heavyweight Champion and someone who basically is one of the biggest names in YouTube should bring in tickets. It absolutely should sell out. But the actual match and the feud, not the most entertaining. I don't see Logan Paul winning here. He beat AJ Styles after all, and that essentially reheated him ready for Jey Uso. But Logan Paul does feel like he's on a downward trajectory, whereas Jey Uso is on an obvious upward trajectory. I have Jey Uso winning this one. Next up, our only tag team match of proceedings. I do have a 6-person coming up later, but this is not that one, though I think eventually it will be. CM Punk and Sami Zayn are on one side, Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker on the other. This has already been announced as well, and one of only 2 matches that has. The Bron Breakker partnership with Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman is doing great things for Bron Breakker, and we know that we're going to see Breakker versus Punk, we're going to see Breakker versus Reigns. Bron Breakker is the one who's really going to benefit from all of this, and I even have Bron Breakker versus Seth Rollins happening relatively soon, possibly next WrestleMania. That might not be soon for you, but for me, I'm 36. A year is not a long time. CM Punk has now re-entered the fray. He's returned from his break. Roman Reigns will before SummerSlam and probably be added to this. But Sami Zayn, I don't know. I kind of see Sami Zayn switching sides. It's a difficult one to play out here. For now, CM Punk and Sami Zayn have an uneasy friendship, which is basically determined on the basis of, hey, Seth, we don't like you. I get it. I really get it. Bron Breakker will be the one put over massively here, and as such, I have the heels winning this one. I have Sami Zayn taking the pin, leading us down the road of CM Punk going one-on-one with both of these men. He's wrestled Seth Rollins a lot of times. Give me Bron Breakker instead for a little while, and I do think Breakker will benefit even more than he did from the Intercontinental Championship run. He also has a history with Sami Zayn, having won the Intercontinental Championship from him in a bit of a squash match previously. So this is reopening a few old wounds for Sami Zayn, and I would imagine opening a few new ones as well. We're now going to go into matches that haven't been announced but could still make the card, particularly when you consider the star power. At Backlash, we saw Becky Lynch lose to Lara Valkyria in unconvincing fashion and then lay in a beatdown afterwards to try and get some heat back. Becky Lynch is choosing to work with Lara Valkyria to really try and elevate Valkyria before she loses the Intercontinental Championship and Becky Lynch moves on. For me, I see this match going on a few different cards. I think we're going to see both women in the Money in the Bank match, and then we're going to see them wrestling in Saudi Arabia before we then see Bayley arrive in time for Becky Lynch versus Bayley at SummerSlam. Bayley then gets a little time off. However, we can't dispute or discount the possibility that we see lots of this. Now, Becky Lynch wants to wrestle Lara Valkyria multiple times because that's going to put Lara Valkyria over more than anything else. So while Becky Lynch might want this match happening at Saturday Night Main Event, I don't necessarily see it. With Lara Valkyria injured, there is talk of a broken nose. It may be that they push this back even if they did have it planned, and it also could mean the early return of Bayley. Once again, I don't necessarily see it, but an early return for Bayley gives us a very high-profile match that really sells any PLE between Becky Lynch and Bayley. Don't necessarily see it, but that is what WWE is working towards at the moment. We need to talk about Alexa Bliss now because her brief appearance on Friday opened a lot of doors and asked a lot of questions. This for me has two possible routes. One of them is in and around the United States Championship on the women's side. The other one is not. So it depends how involved Zelina Vega ends up being. They want to keep the championship in the public eye. This is a good way to do it without an actual championship match. We've already seen a lot of Zelina Vega versus Chelsea Green, so let's refresh it. Let's use Alexa Bliss. A lot of people really aren't hot on the partnership between Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair that's been mentioned, so they could do a singles match here. Alexa Bliss versus Chelsea Green with Zelina Vega in Alexa Bliss's corner. It's interesting to me that they've established a friendship between Alexa Bliss and Zelina Vega, and now potentially established an on-screen friendship between Bliss and Charlotte Flair that exists behind the scenes at least already. So while they could do a singles match Alexa Bliss versus Chelsea Green, I do think instead we're going to get Alexa Bliss, Zelina Vega and Charlotte Flair versus the Secret Hervis, that being Chelsea Green, Piper Niven and Kaylee Ray, otherwise known as Alba Fire. Now, the Secret Hervis don't wrestle much. Chelsea Green or Piper Niven tend to wrestle. Kaylee Ray is largely forgotten in the background, unfortunately. So I think this would be a great opportunity to get lots of women on the card from a SmackDown undercard right now. There is focus higher up between Jade Cargill, Naomi, Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton. Let them cook. Let them work. And instead, I think we will see on Saturday Night Main Event Alexa Bliss, Zelina Vega and Charlotte Flair, thus at least somewhat guaranteeing a face push and a little bit of promotion of Charlotte Flair versus the Secret Hervis, who are guaranteed to get the boos. One person who is almost guaranteed to get people cheering Charlotte Flair has got to be Chelsea Green. So it's not so much for me about pairing her up with Alexa Bliss. It's more about the combination of Green and Flair, which would really make this work. I don't see people cheering Charlotte. I see it being more likely people start booing Bliss. But then there's a Wyatt Sicks in the background, which we will be talking about a little later. I am not expecting any appearance by Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is being given a moderately extensive break from WWE because of the low dates that he works in his contract, and also in general he worked very hard up until WrestleMania, by which I mean he stopped after the Royal Rumble and then reappeared after Elimination Chamber, but we are where we are with that. Roman Reigns doesn't work that many dates, so it will be a case of no Roman Reigns here, but he will be expected in the build-up to SummerSlam after Money in the Bank for me, which is when we'll see him and CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker. It's all in the build to Bron Breakker getting a push against Roman Reigns, spear versus spear, but Roman has some time off first. The other bloodline, however, is doing good things right now and starting to capture some attention again. Solo Sikoa sort of let off the steam and the momentum a little bit after his feud with Roman, but now Jacob Fatu has recaptured that, and the arrival at Backlash of Jeff Cobb should be a very interesting story to tell. I expect them to be a key part of SmackDown going forwards. There's a civil war coming, again between the bloodline, which is why they're calling it the family instead. Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa, but Jeff Cobb's going to be a key part of that because Sikoa brought him in rather than Fatu. We are moving toward the United States Championship feud between Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre, but first, as always and as everyone here knows, you gotta screw Drew McIntyre. In order to get somewhere, first you need to screw Drew. It's a tit for tat that nobody wants to play along with, but also kind of everyone does. CM Punk did it for months and it really worked out for him because now he's facing off with the big names. Drew McIntyre versus Jacob Fatu may appear at Saturday Night Main Event. However, Jeff Cobb versus Drew McIntyre makes more sense to me personally. That introduces Jeff Cobb, could potentially give him a win upon arrival, though I would say the focus is on Jacob Fatu and Solo, so it's unlikely that happens. But with a family behind him, who really knows? I do think while Jacob Fatu may eventually lose the United States Championship to Drew McIntyre, I do think it will be because of mistakes made by Solo and Jeff Cobb instead. The Intercontinental Championship has moved on past Penta, though I still see Penta potentially appearing on this card, maybe in a bit of a comedy segment. We'll talk about that in a minute. AJ Styles makes the most sense to me to be the next competitor against Dominic Mysterio. While he didn't beat Finn Balor, that wasn't a number one contendership match, and AJ Styles is likely to be competing at the top level relatively soon if a new contract is signed, before then starting to make appearances in TNA. AJ Styles versus Dominic Mysterio is a very difficult position to put Dominic Mysterio in a kayfabe sense. In reality, he's guaranteed a great match because it's AJ Styles. This is also as we continue the push towards a bloodline reunion. I am speculating that Cody Rhodes, AJ Styles and Finn Balor will reunite to take on a combination of John Cena, Travis Scott and The Rock at some time in the near future. For me, AJ Styles working against Dominic Mysterio and a reluctant Finn Balor continuing to defend Dominic works perfectly for me. I think SummerSlam is when we'll see Dominic versus Finn, and I think around then we will already have a reunion between the Bullet Club. The only thing I'm concerned about is that Dominic Mysterio is now so over as a face that Finn Balor might not be able to turn face in that feud anymore. WWE are moving towards a Lucha Bros reunion, that being Penta and Rey Fenix on one side, but they need opponents. There is one opponent that has been vexing them constantly, and there is one other opponent that has been dodging them constantly, apart from this week's Raw when he finally had to compete. That's right, I think the logical option is another tag team match here. Penta on one side with Rey Fenix as the Lucha Bros against a tag team of Chad Gable and El Grande Americano. Now, we know that they at least somewhat know each other, Chad Gable and El Grande Americano. Being American-made and the faction that Chad Gable has, I'm surprised their paths haven't crossed more often. But I do think these two could work really well using the lucha style and the more ground and pound of Chad Gable, who isn't a high flyer as we know, certainly can't do anything like diving headbutts or anything fancy like that. So give me Lucha Bros on one side, Chad Gable and El Grande Americano on the other, and honestly, I think that would be a tremendous match. I can't even pick a winner. With the talent on offer, maybe Chad Gable and El Grande Americano. Neither of the top women's championships made the card at Backlash. There are two seemingly obvious choices here, though there may be more going forwards. First, I'll talk about the Raw side, which I don't expect to feature on this card. Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky in a rematch is long since overdue, and something that Io Sky wants to give Rhea Ripley, but there are things in the way of that, particularly Roxanne and Julia. I don't think we're going to see Io Sky and Julia just yet, which is why Roxanne is being pitched more as the leader of that duo. Instead, while we could see Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky, I think the more likely scenario would be Roxanne versus Io Sky. That then gives us a follow-up feud which would result in Julia versus Io Sky, something that the WWE are very excited about, almost as excited as they are about Becky Lynch versus Stephanie Vaquer, which is still yet to come and which I think is next year's WrestleMania match. While that is what could happen on the Raw side, on the SmackDown side, we do already have a guaranteed number one contender, which I think puts the match on this card. That is Tiffany Stratton versus Nia Jax. Nia Jax seems perfect for this role. However, it's a rematch and one we've seen before. There are too many pieces at play. Jade Cargill is undoubtedly going to be involved. Naomi could well be backing up. I'm not sure. I do see, however, the most obvious route being Jade Cargill as champion. And while there are suggestions of Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton is a face now. If Jade Cargill's going to win that championship, I think it's more likely she beats Nia Jax. So personally, I think Nia Jax gets the championship back, at least for now. That allows Jade Cargill to become champion, and then potentially we see a Jade Cargill-Bianca Belair heel feud going into the future. Tiffany Stratton, I think, would go down the card a little bit. She's still very fresh and will have more opportunities in future. It's been a very good first run, but I have Nia Jax reclaiming the championship here. I hate to do it, but we've got to do the Wyatt Sicks watch again. No. Another PLE, another opportunity missed. The Wyatt Sicks are not being featured in any way, and there's so many of them that surely you can find some way to integrate them, even just by retrieving the vignettes. They keep teasing and hinting at something, and they're not giving us anything. And the fact that Alexa Bliss returned with no reference to them suggests to me that the Wyatt Sicks will be completely separate from Alexa Bliss, at least for a period of time. Now, I do think they eventually return. I do think they eventually revisit. But for now, no Sicks, no PLE. I also need to fire through the Tag Team Championship matches because I don't think there are any. The New Day don't necessarily have an obvious contender here, even though they are trying to build towards that. The Street Profits don't have an automatic contender here, even though they're trying to build towards that. There was a match with Fraxine, for example. There are options available. I just don't think that the WWE is going to take any of them. That leaves us with only one match left to talk about. It is a match that is being rumoured by Corey Hayes of PW Nexus, who stated that John Cena would take on R-Truth in 2 weeks, and he stated that when he was 2 weeks away from Saturday Night Main Event. There clearly are suggestions of this. The fact that at the press conference, John Cena put R-Truth through a table. So there are clear suggestions of this, meaning we'd actually get both world champions on a Saturday Night Main Event and not on a Backlash, which seems baffling to me as a concept. That said, I don't know if they've really got time for it. R-Truth is very pro John Cena, very pro John Cena. I don't necessarily think 1AA is going to be enough to change that. Also, at the same time, surely Randy Orton is going to have his eyes on R-Truth as well, unless Randy Orton is looking to take a break or find a new opponent. Randy Orton should be obvious here. The only potential stop for that is if instead we get Randy Orton versus Nick Aldis. Another match with the potential to make it onto the Saturday Night Main Event card. So, will it play out? We'll have to wait and see. I don't have the highest of hopes for Saturday Night Main Event, but click the video on screen right now if you want to know more about the bloodline and the family, and anyone in the comments who tries to tell me that Chad Gable and El Grande Americano are the same person, you and me, we need